Hey everyone, hope you're well. Second live, nice and quick tonight. I wanted to come on and do a quick live in regards to the psychology of the fear and what's happening in Melbourne with this lockdown. So I have got some paperwork here for me to help me go through this. I'll let you guys come on in. Hopefully people see this live because it is a bit of a later one. And I'll go through it with you guys. So basically, just looking at the psychology of what's happening here in Melbourne and why people are so stuck and why people aren't doing anything at the moment. There's a lot of people that are sort of riddled with fear, and I just wanted to talk to you guys about what it's doing and go over some things that my amazing wife Yusra has put together. So I'll let you guys come in, hit the little aeroplane and share it out if you can. And we'll talk about the psychology of fear and what it's doing to the people of Melbourne and probably doing to other countries in the world. But Melbourne's a really interesting one because we are so young here as a country, as a state, and it means that a lot of people here haven't lived through trauma to this scale. And when you look at generational learned capabilities and learned psychology over generations, Melbourne is very young. So I thought I'd talk about it with you guys. Yusha has put this together for me. She has got a background in counselling. She's done all kinds of courses. Her sister-in-law is a psychologist and they spoke this through. So I thought I'd just read it out and let you guys know some thoughts about what's sort of happening out there in Melbourne right now. So I guess the first thing is with COVID, one of the initial introductory definers of COVID was planting the seeds of fear through sensational imagery that came out of Wuhan. We all saw the people falling down in the streets with their masks on, just dropping in the streets. And that was the first images we really saw in Melbourne or in Australia. And it started hitting our news channels one after the other. These people were collapsing in the streets. Initially, we got told that this wouldn't happen here because we're an island country and it wasn't going to come this way. So initially we were given like a warm blanket of we're going to be okay. And then it was carried out globally. So globally they sensationalized it. Sensationalism, fear-mongering, and it went viral. It went everywhere. And along with that, they brought in the masks, the signage, the social media, the ads, alerts popping up on your phone all the time in everything you're in. Mainstream media started getting it out there. It was a red alert to reinforce fear in everyone. And that was globally. So you went from seeing people collapsing in the street in Wuhan to, as I say, the masks and signage, social media alerts, phone alerts, mainstream media, just reinforcing fear on top of fear all around the world. Now, to sustain the fear, the numbers became the focal points. So every time you see someone talking about COVID in any country, it's about the numbers, the figures. This many people got tested today. This many people were found to have COVID-19. And it's fear reinforcement. It's putting it down, like hammering it in. Fear. Numbers, hundreds and thousands and millions. And they would tell you on the news each time they hit a new figure. 40,000, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, a million people infected. It's going to be 6 million. This many people are going to die. Percentages and numbers over and over and over again. You started hearing words. That you could hear. So you started to hear social distancing. You started to hear flatten the curve. You started to hear all these words that started getting pushed down into you as well, one after the other. Bang, bang, bang. Talking about cases. Because the death numbers weren't high enough, they started talking about case numbers. And they started to give you these figures of where you're at compared to where you're going to have to get to. So this was put into us all the time. And the question that we put out there was, how in the world do numbers like 250 people in Australia infected out of a nation of 26 million people, and yet it's warranting such a disproportionate amount of fear in people? So why are people seeing that with only 250 cases through the whole of Australia, the fear is disproportionate to the amount of numbers? And it's because we've had it pushed into us over and over again. So there is a psychology behind it. When we're faced with fear or the threat of trauma, we as humans go into the fight or flight mode. Now, essentially, it impacts and immobilizes our prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that is responsible for rational, logical thinking. Therefore, all our rationality goes offline because the brain conserves your energy to respond to the threat, which in turn causes you to freeze. So your brain, when you start thinking that you've got to have this fight or flight, the area of your brain stops and freezes and waits for when you need to run or fight back. But we're sitting in this perpetual state of fear, and it's there all the time. It's not that something's actually happening, and it's not that it's going away. So we're sitting in that fear all the time, and our brain's sitting there waiting to go, and it's actually immobilized us. It's frozen people. They're stuck, and they can't go anywhere at this stage. So I'm just going to bring up the next page. So Eustra's put a lot of work into this, as I say. She's amazing with these kind of things. At the moment, the people are not afraid of the virus. They fear the government consequences for not conforming, which is why they fixate on numbers, because subconsciously there is a belief inside of everyone that if the numbers go down, we'll lose the consequences. So they're actually sitting there in the fear, and they're thinking, because they're scared of the government and their backlash and the consequences of lockdowns, fines, penalties, that if those numbers drop, because it's been instilled in them, numbers, if those numbers drop, they'll be able to go. So they're sitting immobilized in that fear, not fight or flight, but immobilized, because they're waiting for the numbers to drop from their government. The ultimate psyop of all psyops is the government instilling so much fear in people by catastrophizing that the people no longer see them as an ally, but rather a source of threat, fear, punishment, causing full immobilization. So the people that used to look to their government as an ally or a partner now look at them as the person that can give them back their freedom, because they're the master of this. And that's why people are stuck and they can't move either way. I'm just going to read through the next one here. And then we talk about the psychology of fixing this immobilization of this frozen mode. What do we do as human beings when we go into this fight, flight, or freeze mode? What is it that we can do to help us? And this is where the psychological games have really come in for the government. Because the things that help it are, number one, deep breathing. So you've got to think, the agenda behind masks is multifaceted. It's symbolic because you see everyone in masks and that causes fear. But also it does not allow you to deep breathe. You can't take in the breaths that you need to get yourself out of that fight, flight, or freeze mode. So you stay immobilized because the mask is actually taking away from what you need to get out of that state. So it's a huge thing. Having that mask is huge and part of the psychological game of it. The next thing that's helpful for getting out of this spot is social engagement. So social interaction helps to lift the freezing mode that you're in, but it's basically impossible because of the social distancing measures that are put in play. So you've got to think again. Now they've put in masks, so you can't do your deep breathing to get out of it. And then you've also got social distancing. So you've got masks, which are symbolic. You've got the X's and crosses on the ground, which are causing fear continually as well. You can't do your deep breathing, and you can't socially engage with people. As well as that, they've got the 5Ks, so you can't get there either. Mindfulness is another thing that's huge for getting out of the fight and flight and freeze mode. But being mindful is near impossible when you can't get to the parks, the beaches, and do the things that you usually do for your grounding. And the last one is actually grounding. Restricted movement doesn't allow people to get out to the forests, the beaches, and the places they need to get to. So, ultimately, they stop the deep breathing with the masks and the symbolism. They stop the social engagement because they're saying social distancing must be in place. They take away the mindfulness because you can't get to the places you need to go, and grounding's taken away too because you can't get to the places you need to go. So all these things are psychological warfare, and it's a way to stop us from coming out of that freeze mode, because once we come out of being immobile, we then lift ourselves to fight. And if we fight back, it's the worst thing that the government can possibly have happen to them. So to better understand this psychology of fight, flight, or freeze, is worth looking at the polyvagal theory. So I don't know a lot about this, but we've got it written down here. You can look into this in more detail. Polyvagal, Polyvagal. This theory explains 3 different parts of our nervous system and the responses to stress. Once we understand these 3 parts, we can see why and how we react to high stress. Our primal desire to stay alive is more important to our body than even our ability to think about staying alive. So that's where our polyvagal steps in. So I'll say that again. Our primal desire to stay alive is even more important to our body than our ability to think about staying alive. So primarily, we want to stay alive. Our body goes into fight, flight, or freeze because in the background, it's doing this continually. And some people have this in their body more so than others. And we're not all the same when it comes to this either. The nervous system is always running in the background, controlling our body functions. So we can think about other things on a day-to-day basis, like eating an ice cream, making toast, doing all those things. Our body's continually running the nervous system in the background. So the entire nervous system works in tandem with the brain and can take over our emotional experience unwittingly. So you need to understand here as well. Some of us have gone through more trauma, so we're more engaged and we're more understanding of this fight, flight, or freeze mode, and we understand how to get in and out of it on a day-to-day basis. But people who have not experienced this, or if their nervous system isn't in line with their body, they're going to jump straight into fight, flight, or freeze as soon as they have fear. Now, this campaign that's running on as long as it is, people need to understand that this has happened to them, and we need to actually talk to these people. And this is what I'm trying to say to people is that in our generation, so in countries like Germany and these other countries where they've had oppression in the past, generationally, they've learnt to how to manage their fight, flight, or freeze response. Our country being so young, we're a prime candidate for going into a state of fear and being stuck in it because we've never learnt the lessons that these other countries have learnt. So what I want everyone to do is understand from this, and this isn't written down from Yusra, but this comes from me in discussions with Yusra and other people. We have to have more understanding for each other. We need to understand that these people are stuck. They're immobilized and they're frozen in fear. Now we need to gently speak to them and say, you know what? We understand where you're stuck. We understand why you're feeling immobile because of the masks, because of the social distancing, because of the fact that you can't go and do the things you need to do for your grounding. But we want to help you. So here's some tools for doing it. Each day, do your breathing exercises. Each day, please go and do your grounding. Be socially interactive with people online and be socially interactive when you see someone, give them a hug, because these things are going to help you lose that response of immobilizing, of being stuck in this fear. So start talking gently to people. If they don't come along with it, let them go. They'll find their spot eventually. But understand, these are the psychological things that are happening here. Our government's psychologically getting us stuck in this position. We can get through it. We can do it together. And I trust and believe that all of us are strong enough to do this together. Let's try and vibrate from a place of love. Don't look down on each other. If these people who are in this frozen state, this immobilized state, if they talk to you in the wrong way, please understand that they aren't speaking from a rational point of view. Their rational part of their brain is not working. And that's what I was saying the other day about the people sitting in the circles. They're not using their brain anymore. It's immobilized. So when I say they're mentally impaired, I'm not being nasty about it, but I'm saying this is how we're stuck because they are stuck in a elongated level of fear. So please have an understanding for everyone around you. Be gentle with helping them and waking them up, and understand that not everyone's going to come to the same spot. These people may never come out of this area of fear until they're told that the numbers are where they think they need to be. Please, 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 let's all be patient. Let's vibrate at a high level and help each other out as much as possible. Please feel free to share this as much as you like, and I hope it's helped you guys understand what's going on out there. Peace.